Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Career Retrosepctives with my good man Kyle Q. What's going on, bud?
Hey, not much.
So glad to have you back here once again, and we're going to be talking a little bit. We were supposed to do our show on Monday, but things got tied up on my end. We're here tonight. We're going to be talking tonight about Kiss Alive, quite possibly one of the greatest live albums of all time. I'm super excited about this one. What about you?
Yeah, no, it's definitely one of the most iconic live albums ever made. Live albums, but we'll get into that when we start talking about it.
You better believe it. So, full disclosure, I just saw Kiss last month in Hartford, Connecticut. It was always a good time. The explosions, the pyrotechnics, is always a good time. So, and this album definitely was solidified what their live shows would become for the next 40 years afterwards. So but here, let me just share my screen here. So what are your overall thoughts, impressions, and whatnot of Kiss Alive, my friend?
So like I said, it's definitely one of the most iconic live albums ever made. I don't think that Kiss would have reached the heights that they did without this album. It really took that early version of Kiss that they had, that's very raw, and I don't know how to describe it, but for me personally, the first 3 Kiss albums, there's a couple of good songs on there, but the studio versions don't compare, in my opinion, to the live versions for most of them.
I agree.
It's really, live is where Kiss shines, and you could feel the energy coming off of it. I do think that improved vastly after this album. I think they took what they learned from releasing a live album, which is actually heavily overdubbed in the studio. Most of this album, actually, the only thing that was fully live on this album that was not re-recorded over, at least partially, was the drums. So I think they took...
Yeah, I just want to say, Peter Criss, you are who you are. I mean, Paul Stanley hates his guts, but we'll get to that in a little bit.
Yeah, that's the only thing on the album that's actually truly live and was, unless it was and they never said anything, untouched. Everything else was overdubbed in the studio. And this wasn't one show. This is, multiple shows spliced together, but they did a really good job of making it seem like one concert experience. And this is what you want from Kiss. It's just a fun experience, and that's what this album gives you. And I see why it became what really launched them to stardom. They were popular, don't get me wrong, but this album is really where, and for a live album to be your really mainstream breakthrough, pretty impressive.
Yeah, I got to tell you right up front, I just about agree with everything you just said. Their first 3 albums, the sound wasn't quite what they wanted, but when this album came out, which was their first, it's funny. I'm a big audiobook guy. I don't know if you ever have you ever. I just curious. Have you read Paul Stanley's audiobook, his autobiography?
I have not yet.
Okay. First off, let me just say this. His voice as an audiobook is so soothing. I don't know why I fall asleep to it. It's for Paul Stanley's voice to be so soothing. It's crazy. But he did his own audio. He did the audiobook for his autobiography. It's great. There's clips of it on YouTube and just the audio of it. And excuse me, it's him talking about his actual his life and different. But someone was clever enough to actually cut different segments up to be here's him talking about Alive, here's him talking about Dress to Kill, Destroyer, Tears Are Falling of the 80s. It's really cool. And there's clips of that on YouTube. If you want to check that out, go on YouTube and just look up Paul Stanley audiobook segments. It's really cool. But he brought up one thing at the time was, and this is the 75, if I'm not mistaken, right?
70, yeah, 75.
Yeah, I think so. 1975, I want to say, because Destroyer was 76. That's right.
Yeah, this is a year before.
Yes, and this was the album, and he said that they wanted to make, but he said at the time though, live albums in the United States were not really known for breaking artists at the time.
No,
but as a live act though, they said let's try and record something like that, and they to your point, I will say this too. They did enhance it a little bit with some studio like backing stuff, but
They enhanced it a
overall,
lot.
yeah. I mean, he hit a lot of it in his audiobook. Like, when he's talking about it, he's like, yes, we enhanced it, but not to hide anything, not to like fool anyone, but who wanted to hear a solo messed up or something like that. That's what he was talking about.
Exactly. And that's why I don't mind it, is because when you listen to a live album, you still want the music to sound good. You don't want to hear like an off-key note. You don't want to hear someone messing something up.
Yeah.
Use the best take you got, and if you don't have it, then overdub that part. I don't mind, as long as the energy is there. It sounds great.
Exactly. And this was the album that it skyrocketed their popularity. It was just used as like a springboard, if you will, to launch Destroyer and whatnot. And Beth came out after that and whatnot. Mm-hmm. But him talking about the release of this album, it was his first. It was his first like gold album that Paul, again, going back to Paul Seth's autobiography. But he's like, Elvis had a gold album, the Beatles had a gold album, and now I have a gold album. This the way he said it was really funny. And they were on tour like crazy during this time too, because Alive was selling like 50,000 copies, or then it became platinum later. So, but it was definitely a game changer. So
absolutely.
So, but yeah, so let's delve into the Wikipedia page here, shall we, for Kiss Alive. It was released in September 10th, 1975 was released, and it consists of their first 3 studio albums, tracks from there. And I don't know if you noticed, the back cover, the very back cover is actually like the Detroit, Michigan show. I don't know if you knew that or not, but because they took that picture and they put it on the back cover of the album. That's what that show is. So no, the inside cover I think was somewhere else, but yeah, this is just overall it's an incredible, super awesome live album, and it still sounds great to this day. Like the production of it is great. So I got it's still like whenever I have XM in my car and I have like 70s on 7 comes up, I hear the live version of Rock and Roll All Night that was like huge hit, whatever. I'm like, that just still to this day, just production wise, sounds great.
And that's the thing with that song, is the live version is so much better than the studio version. It has so much more energy behind it that when you hear it played, most times it's going to be the version from this album.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get into the track listing of it for a second here, because I to full disclosure, I forget all the songs that are on the. Some of them I remember, some of them I don't. But let's take a look at what the track listing was from the original release of Alive. Deuce, we're gonna get to all these in a second, but Deuce, Strutter, Got to Choose, Hotter Than Hell. Some of these songs they don't play anymore. Firehouse, Nothing to Lose, Come On and Love Me, Parasite, She, Watching You 100,000 Years, Black Diamond, Rock Bottom, Cold Gin, Rock and Roll All Night, and Let Me Go Rock and Roll. And it's a double album at the time too. How can we forget that? So out of the 4 sides here, just do you have a favorite side at all, or do you have, or just the whole thing? What do you think?
I don't really have a favorite side. I generally pick out just certain tracks to listen to from this album.
Okay.
It's early Kiss is not my favorite. I'll be honest. This is a very good live album. It's iconic. My favorite era of Kiss is actually the unmasked, the no makeup version of Kiss.
Really?
Yes. Those were all pretty much almost all my favorite Kiss songs come from. So if I had to pick a favorite side, I'd probably go with side A. The first 5 tracks are really solid. I feel like there's some filler in B and C, and then the last 4 tracks are really solid as well.
Yeah,
which
it's
generally how a concert is laid out.
Yeah, and at the time it was 16 songs. Back in they still like they play 24 songs now, whatever. So it really was like listening to a whole show, which was great.
Yeah.
Which is something I wish more, not just bands, but I wish more people would release live albums today, like in general.
It is something that faded away in
unfortunately.
recent years.
Yeah, I mean, like the closest thing we have to it now is like Unplugged from like the late '90s of whoever. Like there was Clapton, but that was
But there was
'92.
in the 2000s, they still did some live albums.
Yeah,
They weren't as common, I don't think, as the decades leading up to it. But I think it was really when streaming started that the live album kind of faded away.
it's a bummer because it's so fun. I full disclosure, I don't have a copy of this. My uncle has a copy of this, and I'm gonna come and get it from him, and I'm gonna take it from his house secretly so I can have Kiss Alive on vinyl and add it to my vinyl collection. Correct? Yes, I have a vinyl collection. So because it's just, and I put it on his turntable, it's still even on LP, it still sounds perfect today. It's like just the way that the performance of it was, the way that like the songs came across, like, and of course they're the Rock and Roll Night live. I don't know. I prefer the live version of Rock and Roll Night over the studio cut, 100%. Like, and a lot of the songs on here I prefer over the studio cut in general because it's just that good.
100% agree.
Yeah. So
even Strutter, which Strutter I like the studio version a lot. It's one of my top Kiss songs. This version's even better.
There's no doubt about it.
The energy just translates so much better, and they could come down to low budget on the first few albums there, but I don't know. Once they released this, they really hit the formula for how to make a good Kiss record.
Yeah,
and they continued that, and even the albums after this, like a Destroyer.
Oh my god,
that album is just as I would argue it's just as energetic, if not potentially more energetic than Alive, and that's a studio album. So I think this really showed them like this is what people want from you, and they continued that throughout the rest of their career. For the most part, some questionable releases here and there.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny you say that your favorite era of Kiss is the non-makeup Kiss, because I love Kiss as like a band. Like, I mean,
musically, 100%.
Yeah, like it's just like I see what you're saying. The production was a lot different. I mean, we could do a whole episode on that too. But like I really say the production on this is different from like stuff like Lick It Up or Tears Are Falling, like your Heaven's on Fire, even any way you slice it. Just saying.
Crazy Nights.
I love that track.
To me, it just comes down to that era of the band was definitely more glam hair metal influence than this stuff, which is definitely more along the classic rock lines.
Yes.
And I'm a sucker for that 80s era hair metal stuff. So
there you go. Like David Lee Roth, anyone solo career?
Yeah. So I mean, this album is a great live album. The one thing I could do without in one of the songs, the sirens on Firehouse, to me are just kind of corny. I don't know. That's just I understand why they're there. When I was listening to it again though, the other day, I was like, I got to that point. I was like, oh, kind of took me out of it for a minute.
Oh man, that I mean, like because again, this is a live album. It's from the actual recordings of different shows that they've did, and they put it together to create Alive. And I don't know if you knew about this. I don't know if you knew, because I knew about this because it was like, because it was they pulled. I don't know if you ever heard about this. The actual title of Alive, I don't know if you knew this, was from a live album from Slade Alive, which is another British like heavy metal band from like the 70s. And it was called Slave Alive. They just literally just ripped the title off completely. I don't know if you knew about that, but it was pretty funny. It definitely holds up well too. It's like I said, as a live album, just I love all those songs. I mean, it's we should do. I'm just saying this on air because I don't care what we say it or not. We should do like a best of the non-makeup era Kiss albums. Just, maybe we'll do it next week, whatever. Who knows? That'd be fun to break down like all. Was it 7 albums? I forgot. I don't even know.
It's definitely a handful of them. I don't know the exact number, but it's definitely a handful of them.
Because like in the 70s, and it's funny, just Kiss in general, like the 70s, they released like I think 2 live albums and like 7 studio albums. So
Oh,
1972
they
to
in their early days they were doing like one a year,
yeah,
at least. And that's just how music was back then.
yeah. You
Back
just
then, the thought process was if you didn't keep releasing music, people were going to forget about you.
yeah.
So we saw the same thing with Van Halen,
Mm,
and I think that worked to the detriment of a lot of the artists. I also think Kiss would be part of that for me personally with their albums. I
mhm.
think that if you took the good songs from their first few albums and put them together, kind of like you do in this live album here, you have a much more solid album.
I agree with that. Actually, I really do agree with that. Truthfully, and I have nothing against like the songs they picked because they only had 3 albums to go off of. And
Yeah.
when Alive 2 came out, they had much more to draw from. But you know,
Yep.
um,
That's why I find myself going back to uh, the different versions, like the Alive 2. As I just mentioned to you before, this one, my personal favorite live album is Alive 4, the one they did with the symphony. That one was perfect
killer.
song selection, great. And I just like that this album really brought, it didn't bring live albums necessarily into the mainstream,
Mhm.
but it really helped popularize that in the 70s and then into the 80s. And then even the trend even lasted into we got 2 live Green Day albums.
Yep.
Also, I would put those up there as some of the best live albums. You had the live Blink 182 album in the 2000s. All the Unplugged, Nirvana's Unplugged is one of the most iconic live albums too.
Yeah.
And it's something that I do wish, like we just mentioned, I do wish they would come back. There's a bunch of bands that I think would be great to have a modern live album from, but I don't think we'll ever see them. I don't think it's something that people these days really go and seek out,
And
especially with how much you can just whip out your phone at a concert and just live stream it in pretty decent quality now.
yeah, that's the crazy part. You could just did like when I saw Kiss, there were people doing that on Facebook
Yep.
Live. I'm like, what are you doing? It's funny.
Yep. People do that in the Green Day like chats and groups I'm in. People just throw up a live stream and it's decent. It's listenable quality. It's not like back in the day when you would sneak record a show and it would sound like garbage. It's not
Okay,
bad now.
it's not like 2009 like
Yeah.
era of like anything. And then now we can hell our iPhones and Samsungs can record stuff pretty good too. It's crazy.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, speaking of rock and roll, because it was one of the last songs on the LP of Alive, the Green Day Hella Mega cut of that we heard live on Hella Mega tour was actually like that. They literally like took this version of Rock and Roll Night and they did a hella mega of a good job with that.
Yeah, and then they released it, the live version of that on streaming.
Yeah, I'm happy they did that. Truthfully, I'm surprised Fall Out Boy didn't, but yeah,
Me too. Well, yeah, I think Fall Out Boy is the only one that didn't release something live from that tour.
Yeah,
Weezer did it with All My Favorite Songs. Green Day did it with Rock and Roll All Night, which so glad because I wanted a recording of it so bad, and I'm glad that we have it. And again, really just oh my god, I lost my train of thought. Really just shows that song is the perfect live setting song. It doesn't matter. And that's one thing that I love about Kiss, any era. Their songs, and especially I noticed on this album when I went back to re-listen to it a couple days ago. This album, the songs are not, and this is true to all Kiss even after this, they're not complex songs. They're very standard songs. There's nothing like super complex and like show off about them, but they're well written. Like take a song like Rock and Roll All Night, super simplistic, probably one of the most simplistic songs out there, but it shows how good it is because no matter what band plays it, you play that song live, it's a good time. Like it's a timeless song that anyone could do.
I Completely agree with that. I mean, it's funny because even the second time I ever heard it live was with Green Day, on the Hell Mega tour, and I was like, oh my god, I knew the set list going into it. I'm gonna just full disclosure, but when I heard that live, I'm like, man, it was just so much fun to hear that live. It's because you're right. It's a song that is very easy. It's like for those of you guitar nuts at home, it is just A, E, and D,
And
pretty
you
much.
and even if you've never heard the song before, you could sing along with it. Of course, it's the same thing every time. Like
Yeah, the chorus is the same. Like the
hardly
verses are
hardly
whatever.
any other words other than the chorus.
Pretty much. And like it's funny. Again, going back to Paul Stanley's autobiography, which I've listened to a lot of the audiobook tracks truthfully, and they're very fascinating to hear his perspective on things, truthfully in general. Not just about Kiss, but about his life and whatnot. It's funny. What was I gonna say? He said he because again it was like the segment on YouTube and I just ripped it and I have it on my phone, whatever. He says, quote, we had one song I knew was special. He said he only had a chorus and he only had the chorus because at one point someone said to him, you want to have a song that your crowd can identify you with and like, whatnot. And he's like, so he wrote out a chorus that I want to rock and roll all night and party every day. And then Gene Simmons came in and said, I have the verses to a song, but there's no chorus. And they literally just combined the two to make an iconic rock anthem. So it's pretty funny how, him saying that and how that one song came together. He's like, he said like, this could be the rock and roll national anthem. I'm like, well, it kind of is to an extent if you think about it. So, but I love that track. I love that. I love Kiss. They're great. So,
Completely agree.
I want to jump to just for a sec the reception of this at the time. We have to talk about this for 1 second.
This is where I've never liked critics.
No.
And this is one of the examples to show exactly the problem with critics. Because at the time when this album came out, if you look back at it, it did not get great reviews. Now it has great reviews from critics. Critics have now changed their tune, decades later. At the time, not a very well received album critically, but fans loved it. Your average person loved this album. There are so many artists that credit this as being their introduction to rock and roll, like their influence to get into music.
Yeah. Like, and we're just reading some of it now. Like, Alive received negative to mixed reviews from contemporary critics at the time. In fact, someone from Rolling Stone magazine said they judged the band's mixed music to be awful, criminally repetitive, thudding, monotonous, and mildly entertaining for about 10 minutes. And now he said Kiss is the new bad boy teen idols. At the time, you're like, what? And then...
So I disagree. I will say I disagree with all that except for that one line. He's really not wrong with that new bad boy teen idols thing. I mean, they kind of were.
Yeah. With the guy who breathes fire and just has they have makeup on. I mean, why not? I mean,
that's kind of what they were, if we're going to be honest. Now, the music criticisms, yeah, their songs are a little bit back then, a little repetitive, but they're missing the point of it. Like they're missing the whole energy and experience of it.
Exactly. And then it says modern reviews have been generally highly positive.
Yeah.
So someone of AllMusic said, considered Alive to be the greatest Kiss album ever. Like and in fact, what do you call it? I don't know if you ever looked at the Rolling Stone top 500 albums of all time. At number 159 is Alive. So that just shows you how incredible the album is. So
I agree. I might put it, it's not one of my favorite albums, but because of how iconic it is, I would probably put it at least in the top 100. Rolling Stone has in the past few years been pretty questionable in their lists. Like, for example, I just saw the other day they put out their list of the top whatever rappers.
Yeah.
Eminem came in at, I think it was 25 or something like that.
What?
And they had Cardi B above Eminem and
That's
a bunch of
questionable.
other actual rappers. I don't know how that happened. So Rolling Stone, I'm a little iffy on.
Yeah. I still like them, but that's ridiculous to me.
It's just their lists. Their lists never make sense to me.
I I actually agree with you on that aspect because, like, truthfully, I mean, I some of their lists, like some of them make sense to me, like, but like some placements on there like are just questionable. Like even in their 2003 500 greatest albums of all time list, which I have like saved on my tab right here. It's crazy. I look at it from time to time, just like what other final should I get? Like they had like, oh, what was it? They had like the top 3 albums or top 5 albums, like 3 of them were Beatles albums. And I mean, which makes sense in my mind, but not everyone's mind is like that, you know? So but that's all another conversation for another time. But like bottom line, critics hated it at the time. Now they're like, oh, this is one of the best Kiss albums ever. You know, it's great. So,
And it is. It is. I mean, like pound for pound, if you compare all their albums, it's definitely top 3.
I agree.
I would probably put Destroyer number 1 for me.
Oh, me too. 100%.
But for me, the best Kiss compilation, oh my God, was like Thrashes, Smashes, and Hits or something like that. The compilation
Thrashes,
was
Smashes,
88.
And 88.
The only off thing about that is the re-recorded Beth.
Oh yeah.
That one is a little iffy, but that is the best compilation of Kiss songs they could get, and I will die on that hill.
I actually don't disagree with you because I actually have a CD copy of that lying around somewhere here, believe it or not. Like I gotta find it, but I'm like, it's so true though. If you think about it, it's like, wow, like that compilation was actually, and that you know, and it's funny.
I had it on a cassette as a kid.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh wow, we're going old school then. Oh my God. They had just because they had to actually Paul Stanley wrote the 2 new. Just a side note with Thrashes, Trashes, and Hits. Sorry, I think I said that right. Whatever. There was 2 new songs in there.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to bring it up for a second because we're talking about Kiss in general. X and Sex.
I have been listening to that song like on repeat for the past like week. I love that song.
And it's I'm gonna get to what I want to say in a second, but and You Make Me Rock Hard, whatever it's called, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So funny thing about that, I don't know if you knew this in particular. I'm just, and our listeners are gonna find this out, whatever. But I want to let you know who actually wrote that with Paul Stanley?
Who?
The writers on it, Desmond Child, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with that name or not. Desmond Child and Diane Warren. Diane Warren writes so many hit songs. Like she wrote "I Don't Want to Miss a Thing" for Aerosmith. Desmond Child co-wrote "Living on a Prayer" with Bon Jovi. Like he's like, I've been around the block. He actually co-wrote "I Was Made for Loving You." So with Kiss. So, but the fact that it took 3 genius minds, Paul Stanley of Kiss, Diane Warren, and Desmond Child to write "You Make Me Rock Hard." He said Desmond Child has gone on record and said that's probably the worst song I've ever written. Which is,
that one's not the best. I don't know if I'd agree with that statement from him, but it's definitely not the best song.
No, I mean I was listening to that at one point. I was like, because Eddie Trunk had Desmond on at one point.
Yeah.
I was like, wait a second, what? Like, he actually said that's the worst song they had on that he ever wrote was "You Make Me Rock Hard," and the co-wrote with Diane Warren and Paul Stanley together. I was like, oh no, it's funny. But like he's Desmond Child. For those who don't know, Desmond Child, him and Paul Stanley are really good friends, and he co-wrote like half of the Kiss songs in the 80s. I don't know if like on the album tracks and stuff, like for certain Kiss albums, he co-wrote like "Read My Body" on like Forever. I don't even know that one or not, but like just generically, he's written so many songs with Paul Stanley, it's ridiculous.
Oh, and most of them are good.
Yeah, exactly. Like "Heaven's on Fire," "Tears Are Falling."
"Heaven's on Fire" is one of the best Kiss songs.
I agree, 100%.
Honestly, probably my number 3 Kiss song.
Wow, big words, big
Yeah,
words.
yeah.
So
But and I feel like we can't discuss Kiss without talking about what they have turned into over the years.
oh my god.
They're not a band anymore.
They are a
They
brand,
are a
not a band.
brand. They are. There's nothing wrong with it.
Nope.
I think that it's great. Now, they do have some things out there that are a little out there. I believe for a while they were selling air guitar strings, which was just an empty bag. It's a little gag thing. They also had the iconic Kiss coffin.
So you can die a Kiss fan.
Dimebag Darrell from Pantera is buried in that coffin. So there's a person for all of it, but it's just got a little much for me. I think that, and I see Metallica going down that same path now.
Yeah.
But, and I'm fine with this current lineup of Kiss.
I agree.
Current and most likely final. But then again, when Kiss has a farewell tour, is it ever actually the farewell tour?
I mean,
I'm pretty sure that they've said in the past, either Paul Stanley or Gene Simmons had mentioned, yeah, the band could go on without us, just have someone else throw on the makeup.
I think Paul said that, but he's the one who created the makeup.
I wouldn't be surprised if that happens. I wouldn't be surprised if 10 years from now, they sign off on the rights and just be like, hey, get two guys that sound like us, go out there and just put on the same show.
All four, actually, if you think of it. And you know what?
I mean, yeah.
Well, you know what? Here's what I say. Just as a big Kiss fan, not only do you get the Star Child and the Demon, but then you get the Spaceman, you get the Catman or the Cat, and then on top of that, you get Vinnie Vincent's character back in the mix as the Anka Warrior, and then you bring Eric Carr as the Fox back. There you go. You got like
just
six.
Bring everyone back.
Just bring all the makeup back.
Yeah, I mean,
we're gonna look this
definitely doable. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if it happens.
Yeah, like just bring all six makeups back. Bring all six back as a new reinvented Kiss. Have two drummers on stage, and there you go. It's gonna happen.
The Ankh Warrior is definitely the worst makeup of the bunch of.
I agree. Eric Carr's was really good, but like I don't know. It's just questionable. Like Space Ace. Oh, I get cringe from that.
And that's another thing. The original lineup, they're talented.
Yeah.
They're not needed. Like, and I don't say that as any disrespect to Ace or Peter.
Yep.
There was nothing about the original songs or anything like from the original lineup of the band that can't be handled by someone else. Like, really, the big two, Paul Stanley and Gene Simmons. I mean, the two main voices of the band. Like, I couldn't picture Kiss without Gene Simmons. Like I said, I think it will happen. I think it's just a matter of when.
Yeah, give it like 5 years.
And this slightly off topic, but this could be a topic for a whole nother discussion.
Yeah.
A lot of people in recent years have come after Gene Simmons about his comments about saying rock is dead.
Oh my God.
I don't necessarily disagree with him.
Okay.
I don't disagree with it because he's right. Rock in the mainstream, like it was in the 70s when Alive came out and Destroyer, and then even in like the 80s, it's not in the mainstream anymore. It's just not. And the stuff that is retreads of early to mid 2000s pop punk trends.
At the moment, yeah.
Like, we haven't seen a new, like, outside of like underground and less popular like metal genres that don't reach nearly the success. They still play just like clubs and small venues. We haven't seen a big rock band in years, like a true rock band. I mean, think about it. The biggest rock band to come out of the past decade has been Imagine Dragons. Now, no disrespect to them. Their first album was very good.
It was. Oh my God, you're right.
But just having to say that sentence, that's the biggest and most successful quote unquote rock band, pop rock band to come out of the past decade. You say what you want about Gene Simmons, but he's not wrong. Like, there's definitely talented musicians out there, but in terms of rock in the mainstream, it's not even the most popular genre. According to Billboard, since 2017, R&B and hip hop has been the most popular genre in the US.
Yeah.
And then pop right behind it.
Yeah. I just not to like fully counteract your point, but I do see I've heard Gene Simmons plenty of times before. I've heard his comments. I've heard Angus Young talk about his comments too, believe it or not. And he's like, Brian Johnson was like, "Oh, never listen to a man wearing makeup," but whatever. He said it like that first. But it's funny. I was listening to just on a side note before we go back to Kiss for a second. Just on a side note, as rock and as a genre, apparently, and I don't know if you were aware of this, but in Europe, the health, if you will, of rock and roll all across Europe, in like Spain, in Italy, wherever, Germany,
doing much better.
It's extremely healthy. Like that is their go-to music. It's crazy.
Yep. I mean, you see just the videos of their music festivals. They're still their rock and metal music festivals, massive,
huge, packed.
Like, but if we're talking like the US, rock's been dead for 10 years.
Yeah, it's since 21st Century Breakdown, man. It's been like ever since that we've been like, no. But I'm just kidding. But
pretty much ever since I left high school.
There you go. Since Imagine Dragons is back in business. Anyways, no, I'm just kidding. But like we could talk about that. That could be a whole nother discussion. But like back to Kiss though, and Kiss Alive and whatnot. I gotta tell you, I mean, Alive is just going back to like Kiss as a band and whatnot, and Kiss Alive and whatnot. This is one of my favorite bands of all time. Like just in general, generally speaking, I love this band. They're incredible. I genuinely love them, and I think that their story is fascinating to me. It's like some people are like, oh well, they're in it for like the cash grab or the brand instead of the band. I hear what you're saying there. But I will say that
I don't think they're in it. I want to clarify that real quick. I don't think that they're in it for the cash necessarily.
Right.
I think that they still love the music.
Sure. Yeah.
Recent years, wow, that made me feel old. I just saw their last album being in 2012. I remember getting it the day it came out.
Oh my God, the proof that you are old. No offense, my friend.
Yeah, really. But I think it was pretty recently that Paul Stanley had done, I don't know if it was an interview or just a statement or whatever, I think it was an interview, when asked about new music, like would we ever see a new Kiss record? It's either Paul Stanley or Gene Simmons. I think it was Paul though. He said, no one wants it. And he's not wrong. I mean, I would like to hear it, but you go to the Kiss shows, I think on the tour that I saw them on, I think it was a year after Monster came out. It was the one with Motley Crue. I think they only played one song off of it because they're a legacy band at this point. You go to a Kiss show, you want to see the hits. You want to see the pyrotechnics. You want to see the energy that you saw from Alive that you listened to as a kid and like got you pumped up. It's like a nostalgia trip for people now. So I see where he's coming from with that.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because the first time I ever saw Kiss, they were my first concert ever. They were my first concert ever in 2009. You ready to feel old? Like, I know, me too. I was like 12. Well, I don't even know. But
my first show was Rush back on there. Was it their 30th anniversary tour? It was like 2004.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that was feel real old.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, me too. But I mean, Kiss was my first exposure to live music too. And what a great introduction to anything live in general. I was like, oh my God, it's explosions on stage or whatever. So it's incredible. But you're right though. Paul Stanley did say something at one point. He's like, oh yeah, well, like not like anyone just wear the makeup, but he said that. It's funny. He did an interview with, ironically, Rolling Stone Music Now, the podcast. He was saying how Kiss is saying goodbye. We said goodbye with a farewell tour. to the original band members of Ace Frehley and Peter Criss in 2000. That was their first like original lineup farewell. But I think their end of the road tour, I think they're done after this. I mean, they're so old. It's like, I mean, and truth be told, Paul Stanley's voice and Gene Simmons' voice was actually really solid. I meant to tell you that. Like, they were really good live. Now, like just some last month, they still sound good, even though they're not using. At first, there was like clearly like they were like lip syncing in the first like
yeah,
or whatever.
They just got caught on that the other day, actually.
so
they
yeah,
got caught using a backing track the other day, which is again fine. Every band these days uses a backing track.
Yes,
but it's the fact that they make a big deal about trying to say we don't use backing tracks.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. As far as I could tell, it was singing. I mean, personally, I have video.
Yeah, they
sing. Shot, but...
they sing, but they have a backing track for like the backing vocals, things like that. Usually,
yeah, exactly.
That's usually what people do, make it get a more full experience.
Yeah, I mean, there was like when the tour when their final tour just started, like in 2019, it was like, oh yeah, we're gonna. You could clearly tell that they were just doing that. I was like, oh man, that's crazy. That's terrible. I mean, Eddie Trunk was like ripping them apart. It's like, how could you? It's funny. Eddie Trunk's a huge Kiss fan, so you forget that. He's a huge.
I used to watch
that metal show
back in the day. That metal show, seen every episode of it. I was so crushed when it was canceled.
I never saw an episode, but I do know what you're talking about though.
Oh my god! You even to just go back now and rewatch them, man. You should definitely try it if you can find them. They were so good.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't. I'm sure you can find them on YouTube or whatever, or
probably
some channel or somewhere, whatever on YouTube.
It used to be on a VH1 Classics. I don't even think that channel exists anymore.
Damn, rip. That was a good channel. Did they show up behind the music videos too? You know, like behind the music, just like documentaries. Those things were cool, man.
And pop-up video.
Yeah.
Yep.
The good old days. It feels weird to be old. So, but I mean, overall, I mean, Kiss. I mean, we went off on like a Kiss tangent, but like,
oh yep,
full fledged. But like Alive, going back to Alive though, for a second, we'll just go back to that. Alive as an album though, I mean, I love it. It really set the stage for what live albums could be. Truthfully, if you think about it.
I agree completely. Also very impressive in terms of like recording and production at the time.
Oh yeah.
Very impressive because again, this is multiple shows. It was like 4 shows, I think.
Yeah, it was
recorded across like 4 or so shows with like redubbing done. A lot of the crowd sounds that you hear on this are actually not the live crowd. They're actually added in after to add to the effect of it.
Correct.
And it sounds great. And you would never know unless you like really looked into the process, like recording process. For years, I didn't know. Like when I was younger, I didn't know until I heard about it somewhere. And I was like, oh yeah, I can kind of see that. Like if you actually look for it.
Yeah, I mean, it really, you're right though. And plus it does hold up as a live album in general too. Like it's like I said, because again, going back to his audiobook, the Paul Stanley's audiobook, he said something like, he said how like back before this recording came out, like some people like Jackson Browne, I don't know if you like if you're familiar with him, but like Jackson Browne had like his version of Running on Empty. Like if he said that live albums back in the day before Alive was just like a studio recording and then some applause at the end of the show, at the end of the recording. That's still on Running on Empty. But Kiss wanted to say, let's scrap that and let's just do what we think is going to be even better. And it worked out in their favor. So
it did. I mean, this perfectly captures the energy of a Kiss concert.
Yes, so true though.
And they're one of the bands that sounds better live, in my opinion.
Yes.
And especially on the earlier stuff. They're after this, I think it's pretty like equal. But I think especially in the early stuff, they were better live. And there's a couple bands that are like that. Cheap Trick is another one. Talk about iconic live albums.
Oh yeah.
Cheap Trick's live album sounds better than almost every song on that one also sounds better than the studio version of it. And that came out a couple years after Alive.
Yeah, it was at Budokan, right?
Yep, the live Cheap Trick at Budokan, where the iconic "I Want You to Want Me" performance was from.
Right.
And I just wonder, like, would that have happened? Would that have been so popular, like live recordings, if Alive didn't like break that out?
Yeah. I think with the success of Alive, a lot of people then had live albums to begin with. I mean, some people were you're right. Some artists are just better live. Truthfully,
Yeah.
I mean, aside from Cheap Trick or Kiss, I can think of at least probably like 10 more.
Yeah.
Like even when I saw like Def Leppard's one of them. I mean, they sound great on record, but seeing them live was
Oh yeah, they're great live.
Yeah, so there's that. But yeah, so Kiss Alive all around a really super incredible live album. And you're right, it is 4 dates in 1975. They recorded some shows and they edited them together. It was 4 shows. So
yep.
Any other comments for Alive, my guy? Anything else you want to mention at all? Or
no, I'm pretty good. I mean, there's a reason that it's one of the most iconic live albums of all time, if not one of the most iconic albums in general. Also, the Satanic Panic didn't happen until like the 80s, but back in the day, this was like an album. This and like Destroyer were albums that you would have like a lot of kids would have had to hide from their parents, like, oh, don't let this music in our household. And so it's just such an iconic part of not only music history, but I think cultural, like specifically in America, like the American cultural impact of this also, I don't think can be dismissed. And it's just such an interesting time and such an interesting thing that it took a live album to really break Kiss out. And I just want to also mention that it wasn't until the success of this album, after this, Kiss signed back with the same record label for Destroyer, but they signed only a 2-record deal because the label didn't think they'd be able to match the success of Alive.
I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah, and boy, they were wrong. So I'm glad that this album was successful, because if it wasn't, I don't know if we ever would have gotten the rest of Kiss's career.
Yeah, or Destroyer, or for that matter, anything from the non-makeup era in general. So Revenge, Carnival of Souls. Oh God, that's another one. It's funny. One more thing before we wrap up. I did see them live twice. I'm wearing my Kiss shirt for those of you who don't know. They were my first concert ever. I had to see them on their farewell tour before because let's face it, they're done. They're pretty much done.
Yeah. If Kiss ever comes back, it's not Gene and Paul.
No, it's gonna be brand new people dressed in the makeup. And hell, like I said, Kiss, if you guys are listening to us right now, make sure you have Eric Carr and Vinnie Vincent's characters on stage too. Do it. It'd be so funny. Like the hardcore sweaty Kiss fans would be like, why is Vinny and Eric up there? What? It'd be so funny.
Yeah, but Vinny's character only should be up there for like one song and then walk away.
Exactly. Yeah, just one song, go up there, and that's it. I think they might do that in like literally 5 years or so, because when they're done in 2023, they say with their tour. So
I think that's when it ends. Yeah.
So
unless they keep adding more to it, I feel like they've been on this tour forever. It might just be because COVID extended it too.
That's true. Yeah, that happened.
But I feel like this tour kept going, and they keep adding dates. Like
they added a Vegas residency at one point.
Yeah,
I was like, wow. Okay, sure.
Third leg of the farewell tour.
No, if you, I'm kidding you not, they're on like their 9th leg.
Yeah, they just keep it going. Eventually, it is going to be the farewell.
Yeah, like they said they're targeting like their last date's going to be like sometime in like 2023. I'm like, where though? That's a better question.
Yeah, I mean, they already did the Vegas residency. It would make sense. They're from New York. It would make sense for them to do it in New York.
Watch, it's going to be
for them to have a big celebration for their last show ever. Get Ace up there for at least a couple songs. Just have a big blowout in wherever in New York.
Yeah. Hopefully he's not boozed up, or if he's still alive. I mean, hey, or have Peter Criss come out of retirement. And
Have
then
him come up, do Beth, and then he can go away.
yes, have him just sing Beth for one time only. Since then. Oh my God. I could talk about Kiss all day. But yeah, that's our concluding thoughts for Alive. Overall, a standard of live albums, one of the best of all time. And I think it's a classic too. I mean, any other thoughts at all? Or are you good?
No, that does it for me.
Well, in that case, we did kind of a quick episode today. I think our Foo Fighter episode was pretty quick too. It was like 45 minutes. So, but thank you so much for watching, listening, however you enjoyed us tonight. Thank you to my good man Kyle for putting up with me ranting about Kiss all night, whatever. Thanks so much. And yeah, this guy's a big Kiss guy too, as you can tell. But tune in every Monday because we're gonna get back on track with that.
Yep.
Monday is our career retrospectives night, and Wednesday nights are our regular mixed bag show on our YouTube channel. Check it out. If you like what you've heard here, keep subscribing to Spotify podcast. Check us out, and if you haven't already, follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and like us on Facebook. Thank you so much for watching, listening. Have you enjoyed us? And for my good man Kyle and I, we'll see you guys later. So stay safe and take care.